What's up, guys? Pretty good Saturday yesterday with that huge slate of games. 6-3. Basketball was not that great. The NBA play was the worst one. That just didn't get there. And Indiana was hanging around into the second half, but they just could not keep up. The college basketball ones started out 2-0 and then wound up going 2-2. And the other ones had their chances, man. Valpo was a close game almost the whole way. They couldn't get separation, but then they finally did, and they actually pushed their lead to 9 with like 3 minutes left. So it looked like they were going to cover, and it looked like at that point Chicago State could have run out of gas because they were, of course, coming off that huge upset. So that's why I was on Valpo there, but it didn't happen. Chicago State did not totally run out of gas, and I think they wound up winning the game outright, which is, really crazy. So that's unfortunate. And then the Winthrop one. Winthrop was hanging within that number pretty deep into the game, too, and wound up not getting there. That was like right around the spread for a while there near the end. I don't know what you could do about that. NFL, easy win with the Detroit Lions. Hockey was 2-0. That was nice. Montreal tried their best to blow a 4-goal lead, but they still won the game. They were up 4-0 pretty late in the game. Let it slip to, I believe, 4-3 pretty late in the game. And I think they put an empty netter in at the end to win 5-3, but they were able to hold on for that win as an underdog. Nice one on that one. Arizona, fairly easy hockey win. And then you'd hear me ranting about that bowl game if that had not fallen on the right side of it. The Jacksonville State one, oh my God, man. I laid 2.5 with Jacksonville State, and if you laid 3 or 3.5, I feel pretty awful for you. Of course, that's why you don't want to lay the worst number. At least I got to it a few days early on that one. Getting them as an underdog earlier on would have been better, but Jacksonville State absolutely completely dominated that game, dude. It was 500 something to 200 something in total yards. I think first downs were 35 to 15 or something like that in favor of Jacksonville State. Jacksonville State, total statistical domination in that game. And what happened? They almost lost, and they had to win it in overtime because they had, I believe, 4 turnovers or something like that, and Louisiana had 3 defensive touchdowns. There was a point in the game where Louisiana had 14 points, and they had 2 first downs or something like that, and almost no yardage because they had all of their points scored by the defense. They only had 10 points of offense, 10 points scored by their offense in the entire game. Their defense outscored their offense 21-10 in that game. Luckily, it still got there because, oh, man, would I be ranting about that. That was Jacksonville State. You have to say they were totally the right side there, and luckily it still wound up getting there, but that was really insane that it should not have had to have been anywhere near that close. Let's go to today's games. My NFL video is up. I do have 3 NFL plays today that are in that video. I haven't actually checked to see what's gone on with the lines since then. It's I kind of have a tendency to set it and forget it. But, the Houston Texans one, I actually got 3.5 on that one. I mentioned in my video you might be able to wait and get 3 on that. I don't know why my webcam's getting all blurry here. What's going on with that? Not that you want to see me. Oh, you want to see, you don't, yeah, you want to see my sexy face. I don't know. What was I saying? Yeah, Houston, I got 3.5, and they are sitting at 3 right now. So it is on that key number. So if you waited like I did, you could get better than the 2.5 there. I think that's still good to go. I think that's an injured player theory. I assume Stroud's not playing, right? Because otherwise the line would not be where it is. Let's see. He is doubtful. Yeah. So I think that is the case with that one. And then what else am I on? I am on the Saints. I mean, that number is still just sitting right around where it is. Still like that one. I still have a heavy lean to the Bills, so I still like that. And I still like Washington. And Washington never got to 7, really. So I am on the 6.5 with that one. The football team, the unit patrol squad, the something, whatever's. So those are the plays that I'm on in the NFL. Moving to the additional plays that I have today, and hopefully we can get there with these two. And yeah, you can see my NFL video for my detailed analysis on those games. Probably too detailed. NHL, I'm passing. I think Vancouver is probably in the worst spot out of the NHL teams. These are all games with big lines, and it's just stuff I don't really want to get involved in. But Vancouver played yesterday. They played a tough game, which was a shootout loss to Minnesota. I think pretty tough game. They're playing Chicago today, and Chicago, I think, might have multiple days off. Vancouver, if they had like a bigger look ahead, which they don't, they have Nashville up next, which I don't think is that big of a look ahead. But if they did, I might be going in on Chicago here, and I still lean Chicago as Vancouver is off a tough game with no rest. They're down from minus 230 to minus 210 on the money line. They got 80% of the tickets and 68% of the cash. So the market indicators and the reverse line movement are also on Chicago. And Chicago is coming off a really bad loss, I believe, like some embarrassing like 7-1 loss to Seattle. And that was the game where I said Seattle was in a bad spot too. So I would only lean to Chicago in that one. I just don't think I'm going to quite be able to get there with that one, even though that is close to a play. Moving over to the NBA, I will have one play, and I like the market read on this. I'll mention a couple other spots here. The Celtics, there's a zigzag situation going on with Celtics Magic. Celtics have not played well against the Magic recently. Even when the Magic weren't that good, like last year, they seem to still have the Celtics number quite a bit. And they beat the Celtics this year, but then the Celtics were able to finally get some revenge on them in their previous game. The Celtics beat them and covered the spread, and I think the spread in that game was like 5.5 or something like that. The Celtics won by double digits, and now they're up from 7.5 to 9 here, and they got 71% of the tickets, but 57% of the cash. So after the Celtics beat the Magic as only a 5.5 point favorite and covered that line by quite a bit, now I think it's a zigzag spot where now it's a situation where the Magic are going to be the team to make the adjustments, and the line has moved a bit based on the results of that previous game. However, I think because the line has moved so much, I think a lot of it has to do with the Porzingis injury as well, because Porzingis did not play in that first game against the Magic, and I'm assuming that this line means that he is playing today. I don't think he alone is worth that many points, though. I think it's moved too much, so it is a zigzag situation in that one. And the Celtics have a look ahead to the Golden State Warriors, which I'm going to mention in a second. So I would lean to the Magic there, getting those extra points. I think there's extra value on the Magic there in the zigzag. I do think the Spurs are in a bad spot as well. I just don't want to lay a lot of points on the road really with anybody, but the Spurs just finally got another win, their fourth win of the season. They beat the LA Lakers, which is a huge win. I think that was the zigzag spot for the Spurs there too, if I recall. I'm not even sure, was it? I think they had just lost to the Lakers the game before that. Then they were able to beat the Lakers in the zigzag. Yeah, that is the case. The first game, they actually played them close as well. So they're coming off two big games against the Lakers and sitting around, staying at home. I think it's a bad spot for San Antonio. I just, again, don't want to lay 8 on the road with the New Orleans Pelicans. And San Antonio does have Milwaukee up next. When you're 4-20, I don't know if you really overlook anybody, but New Orleans is coming off a game where they didn't play very well either. They are in the middle of a road trip, and they had crushed Washington, but then they almost lost to Charlotte in the next game. That was a game that was a little bit too close for comfort, probably. It's a pretty big favorite, I think, against Charlotte. How big of a favorite were they? 9.5 at Charlotte. So New Orleans is coming off that where they didn't cover. So I lean to the Pelicans there. They got 92% of the cash, but 75% of the tickets. It is a bad spot for the Spurs and a more positive spot for the Pelicans. I just don't think that there's that much value laying that many points on the road there, so I can't quite do that. The game that I'm on is the Portland Trailblazers. This is up from Warriors 4 to 5.5. Oh my God. What are we doing here? The Warriors have 78% of the tickets on them, but 63% of the cash on the Trailblazers. Trailblazers have been terrible. Nobody wants anything to do with them. The betting public is not going to want to do anything with the Portland Trailblazers. I mean, they've lost, 6 games in a row, something like that, although a lot of them were to tough opponents. And then yesterday, they lost again, so they are in a back-to-back in a third game in 4 days, but they are all at home at least. And yesterday, they didn't play well again. They lost to Dallas pretty badly. It was a game where they just couldn't do anything, even though they actually shot fairly well. Portland did 50% from the field. They didn't play that poorly, but They lost. Luka had a triple-double, I think. It is what it is. So Portland's coming off that. Both of these teams are actually in the third game in 4 days and on a back-to-back. Golden State's schedule is actually worse. Golden State is in a fourth game in 6 as well, all in different cities. They lost at Phoenix in a close battle, lost at the Clippers in another pretty tough game. And before those, they had an overtime game a few days earlier at Oklahoma City, too. So a slew of tough games. And then yesterday, they came back home for a 1-game homestand on a return home, which didn't look like it was a great spot for Golden State, but they won against Brooklyn, which, it's not the biggest win, but Brooklyn's not a terrible team. And the way that Golden State won was pretty dramatic. Golden State was way ahead early in the game and lost the entire lead in the second half. Brooklyn came all the way back, made it a really close game, pretty much all the way to the end. And Golden State was able to finally win right at the end. I think Curry hit a shot right near the end to ice the game for Golden State, a close win. So a tough battle, even though it's not the biggest game against Brooklyn. But you're Golden State and you're below 500, man. You finally get that win. And now you have to go on the road again for a single road game. Kind of a weird spot, up to Portland. Are you really going to be paying that much attention to Portland when you have the Boston Celtics up next, back and home on Tuesday as well? Probably not. So I don't think it's a good spot for Golden State. It's almost a sandwich. It's at least a half sandwich, I would say. Both of these teams are in bad rest spots, but Golden State's in the worst rest spot because they're traveling between every game here. They have that extra game, making it a fourth game in 6 days as well, whereas Portland does not. Portland, it's at least only a third game in 4 days for Portland, and they had rest prior to that. And Portland is not going anywhere, and I think they probably want to get a win at home, and they might think that this is a winnable game here, and the line looks probably too easy. It is still the Golden State Warriors, man. Even though people know they're not doing that well this year, they're still the Warriors. They have Curry. They have Thompson. They don't have Draymond Green, who deservedly is suspended for that punch or whatever it was. I mean, Draymond Green is a dirty player, man. Like, what can you say about that? The suspension is deserved. So I don't know if that's going to affect Golden State at all, but either way, because Portland has been playing so bad, and it is still the Golden State Warriors, and they still have those stars on that team. They have Chris Paul as well. I think they do. Golden State, man, they're like, I don't know. They're kind of a stacked team. It's kind of shocking that their record is as bad as it is. Haven't had an easy schedule either, though, but the betting public is only going to be on Golden State in a situation like this. Portland is just, they haven't really done much of anything. They only have 6 wins on the season. So the line also looks too easy to take Golden State. And the line has gone up to the 5.5, but the market discrepancy, the cash discrepancy is way on the Trailblazers there. So it does look like fairly strong indication on the Blazers. So that is the way that I would look there, and that is what I'm actually doing. I'm on the Portland Trailblazers at plus 5.5. And then what else we got going on? And then the one other game I got, we're moving to college basketball. I have one play here. There were a couple of spots I kind of looked at. I think Nebraska and Kansas State is kind of unfortunate because I think they're both kind of in bad spots. Kansas State had a couple of fairly big wins in a row, beating Villanova, who I think is kind of underrated right now, and then going to LSU, which I thought wasn't really a good spot for Kansas State. And Kansas State went in and won against LSU. Pretty big win there as well. Now they get Nebraska, kind of a step down a little bit, but the problem, and it looks too easy to take Kansas State because they're only laying 4.5, and people know Kansas State is the better of these two teams, even though Nebraska has a pretty good record so far. Nebraska, I don't know, they beat some cupcakes earlier in the season, so I don't think they're as good as their record is. At least they're not terrible either, but Nebraska's coming off a big win over Michigan State, so I just can't do it, man. I think Nebraska's probably in the bigger letdown spot because a win against Michigan State is pretty big. Big Ten win there. So I just can't do it there. I can't get involved in that game, but it's an interesting matchup with both teams kind of being in bad spots there. Kansas State, what are they up to? They're down from 5 to 4. They got 86% of the tickets, but 62% of the cash, down to a 4-point favorite. So kind of interesting game there in that one. And the other game that I almost want to take is the Seton Hall, Missouri game. This one is interesting. Missouri sitting at a 2-point favorite. It looks like it might have ticked up to 2 with juice. Excuse me, with 85% of the tickets and 79% of the cash. I think this is a semi-home game for Missouri. This is in Kansas City. I don't know what this really is. I don't know if this is one of these in-season tournaments or what, but it's a sandwich spot for Missouri because they just played Kansas, played them pretty tough, and that ended their win streak that they were on, although their win streak wasn't really that impressive, not really against that many very good teams. But Missouri, they had a pretty tough game against Kansas. They played them fairly closely, so that's a big game. They were losing by quite a bit in the middle of that game, and they didn't go away, and they at least kind of kept it. They kept it within single digits there towards the end, so kind of a big game. Missouri was winning that game for much of the first half as well, so a pretty tough game for Missouri. If it was like close, if it went like right down to the buzzer, I think I would actually probably be on Seton Hall here, but Seton Hall is the way that I still lean, and Missouri does have a ranked Illinois team coming up next in 5 days, so I think it is a sandwich for Missouri there. Seton Hall, on the other hand, they didn't play that well against Monmouth in their previous game. They had a big lead early, and I think they probably took their foot off the gas. Seton Hall was a 14-point favorite, and Monmouth came back and got into that game and made it close for most of the second half. And Seton Hall, that might be a little bit of a shock for Seton Hall. And, of course, that was a situation where Monmouth is the in-state little brother to Seton Hall there in New Jersey. So that was a big brother, little brother situation in the state of New Jersey. So Monmouth did not go away, and they played a good game, came all the way back, and that might shock Seton Hall back into a little bit of focus there. And that might have put Monmouth actually in a bad spot yesterday in yesterday's game against Rider, but Monmouth still actually won and covered. Luckily, I wasn't on that one. Rider, not a very good team, but I think that might have Seton Hall a little bit refocused because that was a bad game. Not the best game against Monmouth there. The only issue I have with this is that Seton Hall has UConn next. They start their Big East play in 3 days, playing UConn. So even though that Monmouth game, that should have a tendency to refocus you. But are you going to have one eye looking ahead to UConn at all? That's the one question I have with this. That's the one reason I'm not doing it on Seton Hall there, but I do lean Seton Hall, and it looks like the market discrepancy is on the side of Seton Hall, so I do like that side. The game I'm actually going to be on, this is the day of the home underdog traps, man. This looks like a trap. I'm on the University of Seattle against the University of Washington. Washington is up from 3.5 to 4, and it looks like it's going through the 4 with juice. You can take 4. You might be able to find a 4.5 possibly on Seattle. We could say that it's the play is Seattle plus 4. That might be what I wind up on. I'm not sure yet. Washington has 68% of the tickets, with 70% of the cash is on Seattle, the home team out of the WAC, Seattle. The Seattle, who are the Seattle Seahawks now? They're the Seattle Redhawks. Now, the one caveat here is that Seattle is off a big game. They played at San Francisco, and they were a big underdog in the game against San Francisco, 9.5-point underdog. They were getting kind of blown out early in the game. They were down double digits early. Seattle was winning by double digits early. They were winning by double digits throughout the first half. And then they let the whole lead slip. San Francisco showed why they're the better team and wound up being able to overcome Seattle and win that game. So that was a tough game for Seattle. They came close as a 9.5-point underdog, but I don't think that Seattle is going to really suffer a hangover here, even though that game was only a couple days ago, I believe, because this is Washington, man. This is like one of your biggest games on your schedule. University of Washington. You get to play your in-state big brother here, even though the biggest brother is probably Gonzaga, who I'll mention in a minute. This is like the biggest game left on Seattle's schedule, I would say, as far as who their opponent is. I think it's actually their biggest game on the entire schedule, although San Francisco might have been their second biggest game on the entire schedule. Pretty big game there, but I don't think you're going to overlook Washington. You have the University of Washington coming to your house. I think you're going to be focused, and maybe Seattle Is it possible they became a little bit unfocused in the second half of that San Francisco game because they knew they had Washington looming ahead, and maybe they thought they were going to win that game against San Francisco because they had that big early lead? I don't know. But this is the biggest game on Seattle's schedule, man. So I don't expect them to be unfocused here. Washington, on the other hand, they're in a prime letdown spot. Speaking of Washington, big and little brothers, what did Washington do in their last game? They beat Gonzaga, who is the biggest brother in the state of Washington. University of Washington has not been a very good team in recent years. Gonzaga has been the team that kind of is the dominant team in the state of Washington. This was back on the 9th, so 8 days ago. So they've had 8 days sitting around, too, which I think is also a negative for Washington. Washington beat Gonzaga in that game, which was in Seattle. So I don't know if that was I think that was a home game for Washington there. I don't think it was a semi-home or neutral. I think that was actually on Washington's home floor. I think the University of Washington is in Seattle, right? Am I losing my mind? I don't know. Gonzaga had a lead throughout much of that game, most of that game really, but it was not a huge lead, and Washington was able to hang in that game, and they were able to pull off the upset. Huge win of the season type stuff for Washington there. Now they've been sitting around for 8 days, possibly sitting around maybe at home, like you're basking in that win, like reading your press clippings. That's not a good spot. When you're coming off that win, you're just feeling really high and mighty. Now you have to go to Seattle, who themselves consider themselves to be a little brother to you. So Washington, this is one of those like big brother, little brother inverted situations here, where Washington just played the role of little brother and pulled off a huge upset. And now they get to face Seattle, and now Washington plays the role of big brother, and Seattle is the little brother who might want to come after you, and you're going into their house now. So you were the little brother in your house. Now you're the big brother in your little brother's house. That's the situation for Washington. I like Seattle. I'll be on it at +4 or something like that. So those two additional plays I'm adding are Seattle +4, let's say, in college basketball, and in the NBA, Portland +5.5. That's going to do it. Those are the two plays I got today. I gave you some additional thoughts and leans there. Let's get this video out before the slate starts. NFL starts at 1. Enjoy all that. My NFL video is up. My 3 plays there, which I do have, are on Houston. I actually took Houston +3.5, and I think you can get 3 right now. 3 is the predominant number, so I still like that one at that number. Washington +6.5, and New Orleans -5.5, which are all numbers I think you can still grab. That's going to do it. I'm Toad. Good morning. Have a good NFL Sunday. Enjoy the games. Coming down, we're getting into the playoff battles in the NFL, man. Peace out.